there's a number of things you can do with the command line assistant, and there's probably a bunch of things that it will do that we're not even thinking of today. But we're going to try to cover kind of a broad spectrum of stuff that you might want to ask the command line assistant. So we're going to start with, can we have it make us either a fully functional or maybe just the start of a script to do things, right? So sometimes, you're working at the terminal, you do a thing. We always had a motto when I was working in the sysadmin days. It was, if you have to do a thing, go ahead and do it. But if you have to do it more than once, you should make a script. So can we have the command line assistant write us a script? Now, what I'm asking it here, and if you're not familiar, you invoke the command line assistant with the letter C, and then you ask it a question inside of quotes because, well, you're still at a bash prompt. And if you don't put it in quotes, it's going to treat those spaces like delimiters. So, don't do that. So we're asking it, can you write me a bash script that will check the status of the SSHD service and restart it if it's failed? Now, I get it. You probably don't want to make a script that does this. You probably want to figure out why SSHD is failing and maybe monitor it better. But this is, an example. Just, I wanted to see what it would do with this sort of a question, right? And we're going to hit enter and it's going to think about it. Now, the thing with AI is you're never guaranteed that you're going to get the same answer twice. So I asked it this yesterday and it gave me a pretty basic shell script, and it looks like it's giving me the same one today. So that's good. And you can see here, it spit out a bash script, and it's even highlighted in Markdown if you were to copy it and paste it into something that parses Markdown. You can see here that the script has the proper syntax and formatting as a script. It even used some indentation. You may argue as to whether it's supposed to use spaces or tabs, but whatever, the AI must have its own preference. But you can see here, it's sort of doing what I asked it to do. I asked it to make a script that'll identify if SSHD is down and restart it if it is, right? In this case, it's checking if it's down and it's reporting out whether it's down. So I could then take this script and continue to flesh that out a little bit more. But it actually used a pretty good syntax here, and it's using systemctl is active to check if SSHD is up and running. And then it's checking the status, whether it's active or not, right? Now, I'd have to check. Scott, does is active check if it's running or just if it's enabled? Did it get it wrong?
Active means it's running. And then the other thing is, I think it is actually doing what you asked it, because below that, in that if statement, it says start. Systemctl SSHD start. So if it's not running, right, it's not.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I missed that. It is doing what I asked it to do. So there you go. So if it's down, it'll actually try to start it back up again. I just missed that one little line there. So yeah, it did do what I asked. That's awesome.
And in reality, I would probably have asked for a systemd unit change to do the restart there, because that would be the more RHEL way.
Exactly, like I said. But I specifically asked it for a script, and that's what it gave me, right? It's not there to tell me that I've asked it for the wrong thing, which is probably what the senior admin would have done if I asked them, right? But the thing I like about this is it doesn't just give you the script. It also goes on and says, here's how you use the script, right? Because you're going to have to save it to a file. You're going to have to make that file executable. And then it says you could run the script like this. And I thought yesterday when I tried it, it suggested putting it in cron, but I don't think it is doing that today.
It lacks the, in your question, did you say periodically or something like that? Did you tell it something that would give it to believe?
I did not.
Repeatedly run it?
Let's see if I can make it do that. Now we're going off script already, Scott.
Yeah, well, let's hold this until
we'll hold it for later. Okay,
because I know that one of the topics we're going to talk in the deeper dive is asking better questions to get better answers.
Okay, so I gave it a relatively vague set of parameters there. I didn't say what language I wanted that written in. I didn't say, that it should run periodically. So what I thought I would do is make another one, asking it specifically for a Python script. So I'm asking the command line assistant, can you write me a Python script that adds a new user based on command line input? Okay. And when we ask it that, it thinks for a moment. And yesterday it did this pretty well. So we're going to see what we get here. All right. I also like how it says, always review AI generated content prior to use. That's a very nice disclaimer that we've added there. So here we go. It's written us a Python script. Now, I'm not as good at Python as I am in Bash, but this looks sane to me, right? It's making a function that adds the user, and it's actually got some logic in here to like make sure that the thing did its job, right? With a try statement here. There's an exception if it has an error, right? So that's actually not bad practice. And you can see that it takes command line input using, let's see here, where was it? I thought it was using the one it made me yesterday, it was using the command line arguments to fill it in. Now I'm trying to parse all this. Yeah, if user username, where does username get set here? What's that?
Subprocess run executes the command. And so up in the command definition, that's where your username is getting stuck in there.
Look at that. It even has the username. It doesn't ask me for a password. I thought the one yesterday asked me to input a password as well. Well, I mean, you're right. I did not specify a password, but I thought it asked me for it yesterday. I should have jotted down. I should have copied the one it gave me yesterday. And we could have compared it today. And then it even gives me examples of like how the thing will work, which is pretty cool.
So everything that we just showed you, right? This is like normal Ask AI stuff, right?
Right.
You could put these same requests in ChatGPT and it would give you these types of responses. So Nate, why would someone use Command Line Assistant if they can just use other AIs to do the same stuff?
So I would argue there's two good reasons. One of them is that it's right here at the console, right? If you're at the console already and you're trying to do a thing and Command Line Assistant is already installed, you can just ask it here. But the other and probably more compelling thing is that the Command Line Assistant is trained on Red Hat specific data. It's actually trained on things like our knowledge base entries and documentation for our products. And actually, when a request is made, we'll talk a little bit more about this in the future, not in the future, but in later in the show. I guess that is the future. It actually adds in the knowledge base articles and whatnot from our documentation as context when it submits this into the AI to be parsed, right? So the answers you're getting back are actually, colored by all of Red Hat's knowledge for the past, 30 years or whatever that we've been around. So to kind of show that, we have a couple examples here that are a little more Red Hat centric, and the one I'm about to show you is one of those. I'm going to ask it to use the firewall system role to open a port for me. Now, obviously, the firewall system role is not 100% Red Hat centric. You can use those system roles on more generic platforms, but it is a thing that's pretty common on top of RHEL. So let's paste this in here. I'm literally asking it, can you use the firewall system role to open port 8080? And again, yesterday it did a pretty good job. It gave me an Ansible playbook. We'll see what it does today. Here we go. So it's actually given me a playbook that'll call the firewall system role. It even made up a host. I didn't notice that yesterday. You'll have to replace that with your actual host that you're trying to run this on. But I didn't give it a host, so of course it had to put something in there. It just made one. And here you go. It says firewall zone, right? Whether it's permanent or not. It's got the port. It opens it to everything because I didn't tell it to be more specific than that. So there we go. And then it even tells you how to run it through Ansible Playbook. So the next thing I wanted to show you, obviously we've had it generate things. We've had it make me a script, make me a playbook, that kind of stuff. But what about troubleshooting? Here, let's clean up the screen here. We're going to try to start up HTTPD. And now I have intentionally induced an error in the Apache configuration in this case, and it can't start. Now, we could start by looking at the journal because we know that, right? We know, and obviously I know exactly what's wrong here, so I could fix it pretty easily. But imagine that you don't know. Imagine you have no idea why it's not working. Imagine that you're the junior admin and you've been set to the task of like building a new machine or fixing a machine that's been long broken, and you don't have the senior admin sitting there looking over your shoulder. And you're like, what do I do? How do I fix this? So obviously this gives you a hint. You can use journalctl to look at the service. But what I want to do is I'm going to ask the command line assistant to parse that log for me and tell me what's wrong. So what I'm doing here is I'm using journal CTL. I'm turning off the pager because I don't want it to go into a pager, because I want to take the output of it and pipe it through the command line assistant. So I'm going to pipe it through C. Why is my HTTPD service failing to start? And what that's going to do is it's going to take that log output. Now you could trim that down further, and you probably want to. In my case, this is like the only thing in the log is this error, but you'll probably want to trim it down to the error, right? Find the error and either copy paste it or trim it down using head and tail or grep and awk and sed and whatever you want to do to try to get that out of there. But here we go. We can see it's identified that the error is that the server root is incorrect. And it's suggesting that what I do is I edit the Apache configuration file, that I fix the server root to point to, well, it's pointing to etc HTTPD. I don't think that's where it's supposed to go. Oh, wait, no, I did modify that one. That is the right one. So it did identify the proper one. And then it's telling me to start up HTTPD. So now if I were to go, what did it say? Well, I'm already on that line, 34. So yeah, it was server root right here. etc HTTP blah. It's just because I just truncated it to make an error here. If I change this back and then now it should work. There we go. So the command line assistant saved my day. I don't have to go to the senior admin and look like a fool. All right, let's see here. How about SELinux? We've got an SELinux example here. And this is one of those where it gives you the right answer, but it also goes down an extra path that maybe it doesn't need to. We'll let you guys be the judge of that. So we're asking it, SELinux is blocking port 8008 for my web server. How do I fix it? And you can see here that if we scroll back to the top of the response here, it's telling us to check the current SELinux policy for the port. It's telling us to use SEManage, or telling us how to check that by asking SEManage. Let's see. And then it says if port 8008 is not listed, you need to determine the correct SELinux type for the port. So it's having us do an SE search to find the type. And then it's asking us to change the SELinux type for your custom port, right? So this is not bad stuff. And then it's having us start up, or sorry, it's checking for the process that HTTPD is running as, so that we can need to update the policy for the web server, right? So this is where it goes. There's an easier way to get this done, right, Scott, that we were talking about before the show, where it's going down a path that will probably work.
Like, so scroll up a little bit.
Sure.
Right there on 3. Yeah, if instead of the type my custom port T, we actually just copied what it said earlier, HTTP port T, and ran that, done. So right. I think it's actually like giving us a placeholder where we could substitute some of the information it told us in steps 1 and 2, but we have to know that like it's now kind of changed to talk about placeholder. And as we follow the instructions, we're really talking about HTTPD port T.
Right. It does seem to happily continue with the instructions. And I'd have to try this to see if it works, but it has you changing stuff that maybe it has you going deeper than maybe you need to, is my point.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have that little blurb at the bottom, right, Nate?
Yeah, always right?
The content prior to use.
All right. I've got one more example, and this one is very Red Hat centric, and that's why we wanted to show it. Let's say you're on a system, you've installed a package from AppStreams, and, you probably know, maybe you don't know, but you might know that AppStream's packages don't always have the same lifecycle as a full release of RHEL. Packages that are installed from the main repositories of Red Hat Enterprise Linux have that 10-year lifecycle along with RHEL. The AppStream packages don't necessarily have that. In fact, I would say most of them probably don't. They have shorter lifecycles because they're expected to move more quickly. But maybe you don't know the status of a certain package that you have installed or that you're about to install. And for that, I thought, let's ask the command line assistant if it can give me lifecycle information. So I'm asking it, what is the lifecycle for the Node.js 16 package in RHEL? Now, I know that this one is out of support, but I wanted to see if the command line assistant does or not. And when I hit enter, notice that I just said package in RHEL 9, right? I'm not giving it a ton of context here. I'm just saying, here's the package name, and I didn't even give it the right package name. There's supposed to be a dash in there. It's supposed to be Node.js-16. And what it's giving me is the general lifecycle information for RHEL. And I think that's because it couldn't 100% identify like what repository I cared about, what package I really cared about. It just didn't have the logic to be able to figure out, is Node.js 16 that AppStream package, or is it something that was supposed to be included with RHEL? I just don't know. So it defaulted to giving me the general lifecycle for a release of RHEL, which of course is not 100% the right answer, although it probably would have gotten me to the right answer if I went through this and started digging deeper. But if I refine my question a little bit here, and we ask it, what's the lifecycle for the Node.js-16? I'm putting the proper name for the package now. AppStream package in RHEL 9. And this actually gives us better information because it's going to point me to, or at least yesterday, it pointed me to the AppStream lifecycle information. All right, the lifecycle for the Node.js 16 application stream package in RHEL 9 is determined by the lifecycle of an application streams, or of the application streams in general. For detailed information, it sends me to the proper page for the AppStream's lifecycle, right? So it doesn't necessarily, I don't think it gives me any dates for the specific package Node.js 16. It just refers me to the lifecycle information for AppStreams to get the information.
Not super helpful.
I mean, it's helpful in that it gets me to the right place, but it doesn't necessarily give me the dates that I really care about, right? I included a third one here, and I honestly forget why I included a third version of this question.
You should try it, because I tried it today. I think that will make everyone happy.
Yeah, so what is the lifecycle for the Node.js 16 package? And once again, I forgot the dash. But I think I included it because it actually, for some reason, gives us better results. Okay, here we go. Let's go back to the beginning.
And there's what you
really go. There's what I really wanted. So in this case, being more specific didn't help. I don't understand, Scott.
I think it's using the right combination of words. It's like Google Foo, right?
Yeah.
The right combination of words, and you get different results. And sometimes they're better, and sometimes they're not as good.
Oh, somebody in chat's asking if we're supposed to be selling a feature or pointing out the flaws. Look, Into the Terminal isn't about selling features. Into the Terminal is about being real.
That's right, and like learning skills.
So, all right, that went a little bit longer than expected for the critical path, but here we are.